Welcome to Friday. It's November 15th, 2024, your Day Weather Podcast, brought to you by Converse County Tourism. Douglas and Glen Rock, Wyoming are bustling with action this holiday season. Plan your excursion, including fun activities, beautiful downtowns, and historic treasures. Learn more at conversecountytourism.com. As we head into the weekend, we're still looking at that splitting storm, and we still have, I hate to say it, just very low confidence in next week's weather pattern. But first things first, more beautiful sunrise and sunset photos to show you here in a moment. We have the splitting storm this weekend, and that's going about as expected. Confidence is high on how that's going to unfold. We're going to see some snow in the north, some rain on the plains with the southerly split, as I'll show you here in a moment. Our confidence next week remains very low on the exact path of the storm and also the intensity of the storm. Overnight, the models did change quite a bit, but I still don't think that they are handling the situation correctly, as I'll show you here in a moment. So as we get into early next week, especially out on the plains, do be prepared for some changing weather conditions. Also, we do have a La Nina update. Where is La Nina? What's it doing? And where is it going? More beautiful photos coming on in from the sunrises and sunsets with that high-level Pacific moisture coming on in. And it just has led to just beautiful, beautiful opportunities in the mornings and the evenings. And you can see some of that moisture right here on the satellite image. The satellite image and the loop we're showing you here, showing you the next trough coming into the Pacific Northwest. We have strong, moist jet stream winds cutting across the North Pacific, as you can see there. The nation's midsection under a big dome of high pressure at the moment. And all that blue you see out here is cold, moist air coming through the Great Lakes, causing a lot of stratus clouds, a lot of cloudiness there in the Midwest and the Great Lakes, while clear skies out west. But this approaching trough of low pressure is going to change things up a bit. This is where we're going to be by noon today. That trough splitting, getting stretched out, and settling into the Great Basin. This is going to be producing areas of showers across the Pacific Northwest, into the Great Basin, into Northern California. Then tonight and into Saturday morning, it's going to spread to areas along and west of the divide. This is by Sunday morning. So this is by noon today. By Sunday morning, you can see that the split is complete, and that low is going all the way down into northwest Mexico, the other low going up along the U.S.-Canadian border. So with the stretching between the two, that will really cause the precipitation that'll be up here with the trough to fade away very, very quickly. But this low will start to draw moisture up into Texas, New Mexico, as you'll see in a moment, into the plains by late Sunday night into Monday and Tuesday. This is what the forecast for precipitation through Sunday afternoon looks like. This is going to be a swath of snow here. So travelers across Montana, western North Dakota, into eastern areas of Idaho, northwestern Wyoming, you're going to have some snow there, and there's going to be pockets of snow and rain along and east of the Cascades and into the basin. Rain becomes more prominent with that southern low down here. This is mainly developing by Sunday afternoon into Sunday night. This low is going to curl up and cause quite a bit of rain, as I'll show you here in a moment, out into the plains. This is what the snowfall forecast looks like through Sunday afternoon and evening. But with the split, we'll see this evaporate, kind of go away as it heads south and east, while rain is going to spread out across the plains as that low, which by Sunday was here, by late Monday will be all the way up into here. Now this is where things get really murky and messy because of what's going on up here. What was looking like was going to happen is there was going to be some high pressure building in between these two low pressure systems. Now they're sort of merging as one, which may or may not be correct, which is going to in turn cause this low to kind of pull everything northward in terms of the track of this low as it digs in. So this is by Monday afternoon. Ahead of this low, though, there's going to be very impressive rain. Look at that. A lot of rain for Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, into central and eastern Nebraska, getting into the western Corn Belt. On the far northwest edge, there is going to be some snowfall with this system, but this is mostly going to be a rain event out into the plains. Precipitation will then come in with the next front coming in to the Pacific Northwest and kind of the same areas that are going to see the moisture this weekend. Now, this is where things get a little bit murky in terms of where the system's going to go. There's been a large north shift in the modeling. I mean, a significant northern shift. Instead of the low being down here, it's now wanting to be up here, which is what actually the GFS was suggesting earlier this week. And then we went and told you the differences between the European and the GFS. But as we told you, sometimes the model that doesn't do as well sometimes wins. I'm not saying it's going to win in this situation, but we do have some decent model agreement now. But whether or not the models are agreeing correctly is something we'll just have to figure out. So this is the European model by Wednesday morning. This shows a strong elongated north-south trough that would produce some wintry weather on the back side of it right here for sure. Quite a bit of wind and pulling in some cold Canadian air. And then you're going to see moisture and rain and unsettled weather out ahead of it and colder air pouring in on the back side of the trough. But this would keep most of the weather off the front range and it would keep it out into the plains. The Canadian model looks like this, and the GF model looks a lot like the European model. So there's a lot of agreement here. Question is the situation being handled by the models here correctly? And this is where I've got to put a big question mark. I'm not sure, because the trough of low pressure that's here doesn't really make sense physically in terms of how it would come together. It could very well be a little bit more to the northwest, and maybe a little bit more of a rounded feature instead of an elongated one, which would change the structure of this high, which would make this go south again. So this is what we're confident about at the moment. We're going to see the system out here on the northern plains. I think it's going to be off the front range. So the immediate front range areas probably will not get much out of this. But the placement of this storm, which is now north, could end up being further south. Why could it be further south? Well, because of this situation here not being handled correctly and the ridge between the two. The Icon model, with its earlier update, was up here. It updated just before the podcast was recorded here again, and it shifted things back to the south again, back down over Oklahoma and Kansas instead of being over North Dakota. So confidence is low. If you're in the plain states, though, you're likely going to see a lot colder weather and probably some wintry weather as well. If we took a blend, we call this a national blend of models, and we put them all together, you can see that there is snow forecasted on the back side of this storm, and it will be much colder coming in behind it. And there will also be a lot of wind with this. So what we're showing is that this is the area, like we showed you yesterday, to kind of watch out for, especially if you're a livestock interest, that this area could be hit by some pretty good winter weather, wind, much colder temperatures, and snow. However, this oval could expand and go back south again as we get into early next week. Now, we will have time on Monday to kind of assess the situation, because most of this is going to be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday situation out in the nation's midsection. So unfortunately, we're going into the weekend with low confidence. Hopefully, we'll have a better idea of how this all will come together later on. I mentioned the wind. There's going to be quite a bit of wind on the back side of this trough of low pressure out into the plains, getting into some front range areas, and that's going to pull in much colder Canadian air as well. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll know more for you. Now, as we go into the La Nina El Nino situation, where are we now? Well, we have La Nina. Here it is right there. You see the blue across the subtropical Pacific. We also have a very warm stretch of water right here relative to the 3-year average. And notice the cold here in the Gulf of Alaska. The reason we've started to see the weather get more stormy is this gradient between the warm here and the colder up here. What we are expecting over time is this cold pool to moderate and actually to see some of this warmer water come up into here. That is the cold signal that will probably unfold later this month into December. But we have La Nina. It's not a terribly robust La Nina, but it's in place. Anything below the 0 mark, if we go back here to August, is you're going to be in a cold Pacific situation. And anything 0.5, minus 0.5 or less Celsius anomaly is going to technically put you in a La Nina. And this is where we are right here. Notice there's been some modest weakening of La Nina. And we did get the new forecast yesterday, and the new forecast is showing the La Nina peaking right here, and the blue bars decreasing, showing the La Nina is fading away. And the gray bars, which is what we call a neutral status, it's neither a La Nina or an El Nino. Those gray bars are showing an increase in probability. So as we get into early winter, into spring, La Nina is going to be gone. And we're going to start trending in the other way with those sea surface temperature anomalies, which is good news because that would mean a potential for a more wet spring and summer as compared to last year. Something we'll keep an eye on with these monthly updates. Have yourself a good weekend. We'll see you Monday.